الحمد لله علي الذات عظيم الصفات سمي السمات كبير الشأن جليل القدير رفيع الذكر مطاع الأمر جليل البرهان فخيم الاسم غزير العلم وسيل الحلم كثير الغفران جميل الثناء جزيل العطاء مجيب الدعاء يعمل الإحسان سريع الحساب شديد العقاب أليم العذاب عزيز السلطان ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له في الخلق والأمر ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله المبعوث إلى الأسود والأحمر المنعوت بشرح الصدر ورفع الذكر وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه الذين هم خلاصة العرب العرباء وخير الخلائق بعد الأنبياء. أما بعد فيا أيها الناس وحدوا الله فإن التوحيد رأس الطاعات واتقوا الله فإن التقوى ملاك الحسنات وعليكم بالسنة فإن السنة تهدي إلى الإطاعة ومن أطاع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى وإياكم والبدعة فإن البدعة تهدي إلى المعصية ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل وغوى وعليكم بالإحسان فإن الله يحب المحسنين وادعوه فإنه مجيب الداعين واستغفروه يمددكم بأموال وبنين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. للذين أحسنوا الحسنى وزيادة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He emphasizes to us the significance and the importance of our character. This is something that is very well known to us, something that we are quite familiar with. That a person's character, the way a person conducts him or herself, the way they treat other people, says a great deal about that person. And the quality of that person themselves. Sometimes one of the most powerful ways to gauge what is the quality of your own heart and your own soul is how do you treat somebody else. And this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us in the Quran. When He shares with us the example, the noble example of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Where Allah compliments the character of the Prophet ﷺ, and He says, no doubt you are upon a very great and noble character. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about how remarkable the character of the Prophet ﷺ was, particularly in terms of how he interacted with other people, and how he treated other people, and how he handled the suffering of other people. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. When it talks about that there came to you a messenger from amongst you, and your suffering, your difficulty, your tragedy is hard on him. He feels your pain. حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. He is completely invested into your well-being. بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. And particularly with the believers, He is very compassionate and merciful. So we understand that character is important. The Prophet ﷺ summarizes it, where the Prophet ﷺ tells us that one of the most heaviest things, أَثْقَلُ شَيْءٍ فِي الْمِيزَانِ حُسْنُ الْخُلُقِ. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that one of the heaviest deeds that a believer can have in their favor on the Day of Judgment is good character. But I wanted to focus in on this issue of good character and talk about exactly what good character entails. Because a lot of times we very superficially talk about good character. And we just say that, you know, it's to be good, it's to be nice, it's to be generous, or to be forgiving, or to be kind, etc. We speak in generalities. But I wanted us to very specifically talk about what is the character of the Prophet ﷺ. So there's a particular moment, and there are no doubt hundreds, if not thousands of moments like this from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The books of hadith and the books of seerah are full of them. But there's one particular moment from the life of the Prophet ﷺ that I'd like to talk about here today. It is something that I have reflected upon a lot, more recently, and something I've tried to internalize and give a lot of thought to. So it's something I'd like to share with you here today. The Prophet ﷺ, to give everyone a quick, brief, breakdown and timeline of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Most everyone is familiar with this, but it'll help to appreciate what we're going to talk about. The Prophet ﷺ began preaching and teaching the message of Islam in Mecca at the age of 40. He spent the next 13 years residing in Mecca, trying to establish and preach and propagate the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After 13 years, he migrated, and those 13 years were filled. Those 13 years were marked by opposition, persecution, physical violence and torture, and even the killing of many of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Then the Muslims and the Prophet ﷺ migrated from Mecca to Medina after 13 years. When they went to Medina, the difficulty, the tragedy did not end. But it very unfortunately and tragically continued. The Meccans continued to harass the Muslims, torment them. They launched raids and attacks against them. There were multiple battles that happened between them. And the next 6 years, even after moving to Medina, leaving their homes, the next 6 years were still marked by immense conflict. And were 6 very difficult years for the Muslims. Because there was always an enemy at the gates trying to burn Medina to the ground. And the condition of the Muslims themselves was that they were poor, they did not have enough food, they did not have enough supplies, but they could not focus their energies on bettering their situation because they were constantly on the defensive, because this enemy had made it the purpose of its existence to annihilate them and to destroy them. So they spent the next 6 years this way. Finally, there was the establishment of some peace. And that lasted for 2 years. And after 2 years of peace, 19 years of conflict, followed by 2 years of peace. And 2 years of peace was too much to handle for the Meccans. They broke the peace treaty, and the Prophet ﷺ had to respond accordingly. And that's when Fatih Makkah, the conquest of Makkah, the opening of the city of Makkah happened. The Prophet ﷺ put together a very large army, marched towards Makkah, and Makkah surrendered itself. And the Muslims peacefully entered the city of Makkah. And much of Makkah accepted Islam at that moment. This is where we're at. This is where the story is that I'd like to share. There was a man in Makkah by the name of Safwan ibn Umayyah. His father, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, was one of the primary opponents of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the primary opponents. This man, his father, did everything within his power to harass and to bother and to torture the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. There was an older generation of the opposition, Abu Jahl, Umayyah bin Khalaf, Walid bin Mughira. Much of them, all of them had passed or had been killed. It was now this next generation. And this next generation had taken up the mantle of the previous generation, and they had continued the opposition of the Prophet. You had people like Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl. You had initially people like Khalid, the son of Walid. You had people like Safwan, the son of Umayyah. So when the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims arrived in Mecca, Safwan bin Umayyah, even though there was peace for the last 2 years between Mecca and Medina, he was not in agreement with that peace. He said we never should have had peace with the Muslims. We should have kept fighting Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was so stubborn. So now that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was entering Mecca, victorious, he said, I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to hang around here to see what happens. Because I have lived the last 20 years of my life opposing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm not going to live in the city that he is going to rule over. I'm not going to do it. So he fled from Mecca. He said, I'm out of here. He left Mecca, he fled from Mecca. And at that time, he went to the seashore. He went to where the ocean was, the port was. And he said, I'm going to board a ship, cross the ocean over, and go somewhere else. I'm going to leave here. So the Prophet ﷺ entered into Mecca. He said, where is Safwan? Someone said, well, he fled. The moment he got news that you were coming, he left, he fled. The Prophet ﷺ said, okay. Safwan's best friend, his closest friend, his name was Umayr bin Wahab. He became Muslim. Umayr came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Messenger of Allah, I know that Safwan has opposed you in the past. And yes, instead of coming to you and talking to you now, he has fled Mecca. I understand. But I'm telling you, O Messenger of God, as his closest friend, that there is good in him. There is good in him. And I think I can tap into that good. I think I can reach. I think I can access that good that he has within him. I can get to him. I just need your assistance. Now, I want you to pause. I'm going to take certain pauses during this story. I want you to pause here and ask yourself that if one of your fiercest enemies was on the run, was a fugitive, and his friend or family member came to you and said, I'd like to bring him home, I need your help. What would you say? I know what I would say. I know, unfortunately, what I might think about saying. It's not my problem. It's good. Let him run. It will teach him a lesson. And that's what happens when you mess with people. Right? Think about it. What does the Prophet ﷺ do? The Prophet ﷺ says, yes, how may I be of assistance to you? He says, if you can give him amnesty, if you can guarantee his protection, that he will not be harmed, then I will go to him and let him know that he has nothing to fear in coming back to Mecca. You have guaranteed his safety. Again, ask yourself, would you do that for an enemy? When you won, you're in charge. This was a 20-year-long battle, and you won. You're in charge. You get to decide what you're going to do. And the enemy who fought you for 20 years, would you forgive that enemy? Grant them total immunity and protection? Or would you want revenge and vengeance? And want to teach him a lesson? The Prophet ﷺ says, he's forgiven. He is safe. My guarantee. Tell him to come. It was so shocking that the Prophet ﷺ, whose character is mind-blowing, even people were shocked at this, because Safwan was such an enemy, that Umayr said he's not going to believe that you just forgave him like that. So he makes a third request. Can you give me something that proves, something from you that proves that you have in fact forgiven him? Something that I can show him that could only come from you. You know, in our day and age, you would take a video of somebody. Somebody would say that, you'd record somebody saying that in a video. But what do you do in those day and age? So what you did in those days was, you gave an item, a personal article. You gave something that belonged to you personally. The only way someone could have it is if you gave it to them. So the Prophet ﷺ was wearing the imamah. He was wearing the turban. The Prophet ﷺ took off his turban and he handed it to Umayr. And he said, take this to him. Because this goes on the head of the Prophet ﷺ. The only way someone could have this was if the Prophet ﷺ gave it to them. So Umayr takes that turban in his hands and he goes there. He finds Safwan about to board a ship. He says, where are you going, friend? Don't go, don't go. He says, Iyaka anni, leave me alone, get away from me. Because he knew his friend had become Muslim. So he didn't trust his friend anymore. He said, the Prophet ﷺ forgave you. He stops. What? The Prophet ﷺ grants you full protection. Huh? That's not logical. I wouldn't forgive myself. Like I'm the enemy. He says, no, that can't be true. He says, look what I have. And he shows him the turban of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's when Safwan knows, wow, you are coming directly from him. So then he brings Safwan home. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ, sits down in front of the Prophet ﷺ. And now think about the level of favor the Prophet ﷺ has already done upon him. Think about that. The Prophet ﷺ invites him to Islam. Accept Islam, Ya Safwan. He says, you know, I'm not really convinced. I need some time to think about things. He's negotiating. He's not in a position to negotiate. The Prophet ﷺ said, how much time do you need? He says 2 months. The Prophet ﷺ says, take 4 months. Take your time. And in those 4 months, you can return home, live in Mecca, conduct your business, go about your life as usual. No problem. Nobody will mess with you. Shortly thereafter, there was news reached Mecca that there was an army that was amassing together to attack the Muslims at the place of Hunayn. The Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims got ready to go and to face this threat. They were short on weapons. Safwan was like a weapons collector. It was his hobby. It said that Safwan himself owned enough weapons and armor, just as a collection, as a personal collection. He owned enough to be able to equip 100 soldiers. He was like a gun collector. So the Prophet ﷺ spoke to Safwan. He said, you have a lot of armory and weapons and things like that. We need to borrow it because we're going for a battle. He says to the Prophet ﷺ, Aghasban ya Muhammad? Aghasban ya Muhammad? Are you forcefully trying to take my stuff, oh Muhammad? You trying to take my stuff? Look how he speaks to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ won. He's in charge. Safwan is only alive because the Prophet ﷺ gave him his protection. Aghasban ya Muhammad? You're going to try to take my stuff, Muhammad? Look how he speaks to him. The Prophet ﷺ, but look how he responds. بَدْعَارِيَةً مَضْمُونَةً نُؤَدِّهَا إِلَيْكَ. He said, no, I would like to borrow it. It will be fully guaranteed. And we will return it to you. And for any damages that are incurred, I will compensate you for it. مَضْمُونَة, ضَمَانَ. The Prophet ﷺ is in charge. He doesn't have to do all of this. But he does. So then, they go for the battle. They return back from the battle a few weeks later. When they return back from the battle, the Prophet ﷺ tells the companions, all right, gather all of Safwan's stuff together, count it up, call him, tell him to come and inspect everything, and then see how much we owe him. So they do all that. They gather all the weapons together. Safwan comes, he looks at everything, and then they realize, okay, this many swords are broken, or this many shields are damaged, or this many spears are missing. They figure out exactly what the losses are. And then the Prophet ﷺ calls Safwan And he says, yes, please tell me how much do I owe you? Ludicrous. I owe you? Safwan owes his life to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wouldn't have been alive if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam hadn't guaranteed his freedom, his security, his safety, excuse me. He guaranteed his safety. But he says, how much do I owe you? And what does Safwan say at that time? He says, La ya Rasulallah. La ya Rasulallah. Do you hear that? Before he calls him Ya Muhammad, now he calls him Ya Rasulallah. He says, no, O Messenger of God. Inna li fil Islami raghba. I am interested in accepting Islam. What I wanted to mention by sharing this particular story is being good to someone who is good to you, like a friend or a family member, is very good and it's very noble and it's very important. But it doesn't say all that much about a person's character. You're being good to somebody who's being good to you. You're reciprocating good with good, which is fine. Being good to someone that you need something from is, again, not a terrible thing. But it does not exactly inspire. Because I need something from you. If I want someone to do me a favor and so I'm being nice to them, that's very understandable. It's an exchange. But what says something absolutely remarkable, what says something mind-blowing about a person's character, how do you treat someone? How do you treat someone that you have nothing to gain from? How do you treat somebody who is at your mercy? How do you treat someone when you have the upper hand? How do you treat somebody when you can have your way with them? You could do whatever it is that you wanted to do. How do you treat that person in that moment? That says so much about a person's character. And that's who the Prophet ﷺ was. And that's how he changed people's lives. That's how a bitter enemy in 20 days goes from challenging the Prophet ﷺ's authority, Ghasban ya Muhammad, do you want to try to take my stuff, Muhammad? He goes from saying that to 20 days later, he's saying, La ya Rasulullah. No, Messenger of God. Inna li fil Islami raghba. I am interested in the religion of Islam. Please teach me. That 180, one of the vehicles of facilitating that was the remarkable character of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the legacy of our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So as we've been talking about in the khutbah, a question that we have to learn to ask ourselves, and really something that we have to start gauging ourselves by, is not only just simply our character, but looking at the context of our character. The context of our character. How do I treat somebody when they have nothing to offer to me? How do I treat somebody when there is no worldly benefit that can come to me from them? In the hereafter, yes. But in this world, there's no practical benefit. I'm not doing business with this person. I'm not trying to borrow money from this person. I'm not trying to ask for a favor from this person. How do I treat such a person? And when that is an idea that we begin to internalize and that we begin to live by, where we will see a profound change in how people interact with our deen and religion, and how people perceive our deen and our religion. That is what the people at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that even the You know, the debates, all the debates and all the argumentation and all the evidences in the world were not enough to convince them to accept Islam. That remarkable, beautiful character would pierce right through their hearts and spark Iman within their hearts. That is the power of that character. And that's something we're desperately in need of today. And I'll conclude by recalling the famous statement of Abdul bin Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala, a great scholar of hadith. We live in the age of information today. We are obsessed with information, and we think if we know more, that'll automatically make us better, and that'll automatically solve all of our problems. Abdul bin Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, we are much, much, much more in need of good character then we are in need of a lot of knowledge of hadith. He was a muhaddith. He was saying what I need more than even more hadith knowledge is I need a lot more good character. Because that goes a long, long way. So alhamdulillah, before I conclude, we offer the du'as and I conclude the khutbah. Just wanted to mention it's a very great blessing and a pleasure, alhamdulillah, and a privilege to be able to visit your community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our worship on this Friday. And inshallah, we'll be congregating, we'll be getting back together inshallah this evening at 7 p.m. here at your Islamic Center inshallah to talk about the khutbah of Hajjatul Wida and to talk about the final days of the Prophet's life and the lessons and the guidance and the advice that he gave to us in his final days. That'll be here this evening at 7 p.m. So please come and join us bi'idhnillahi ta'ala so that we can continue to learn from the legacy of the Prophet and hopefully come closer to the remarkable example of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin. Allahumma ansur al-Islam wal-Muslimin. Allahumma ahdina wa ahdibina waj'alna sababa liman ihtada. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Allahumma ahsin aqibatana fil umuri kulliha. وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى وصلى الله تعالى على النبي الكريم قال الله تعالى إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون أقم الصلاة